take the overlay off firstly. Microphone's in the wrong place. But anyway, I'm going to try to start this off. Yeah, I'm professional these days. However, it's been a great week of Champions League football. Tuesday was fantastic. Yesterday was great as well. We want to be in that, don't we? If we're in it, what's it going to be like? There are some uncomfortable conversations to have. Players, manager, tactics, Champions League, investment, ENIC. We're not going to get through all of those, but we're going to try to at least have some conversation. Now, it's not a Tottenham hating case. This is just us discussing. Remember, it's all about opinions.
It's just different.
Hello, welcome to PRTvSpurs, PRTvSpurs, whatever else you want to call us. I'm Sam Spurs for life, and this is Talking Points episode number 123. Oh, 123 it should have been. It's not 122. Sorry about that. But you know what? That's what it is. We're not professionals, but we try. Joining me today to discuss all things Spurs for uncomfortable conversations. There's Shay again. Uncomfortable conversations, part one. Already seen in the comments they're asking me about how many parts of this going to be. Could be a couple, could be three. You never know. Anyway, in the house, Darius 3K to discuss Spurs and where we're at, where we're going, what we're doing, and just things in general. How you doing?
I'm all right, to be fair. After Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm great. Football, that's true football heritage, as we say, without the H.
Heritage.
That was a proper Champions League week of extremely entertaining football and some extremely high quality goals as well throughout both days. So yeah, I probably picked my favorite game was probably definitely the City Real Madrid game. And I'll be honest with you, my favorite goal was that Fede Valverde goal. Out of all of them, I think that was the best goal. So yeah, I'm very happy to enjoy Champions League being back, and hopefully Bayern can go and finish the job next week and we can rest a little bit easy.
Definitely. As much as you can't rely on anybody else to do things for you, I'm relying on a few people to do a few things for us. Bayern Munich being one of them, Harry Kane being another one. Then we've got to rely on ourselves, and we play them lot at our stadium in 2 weeks' time. But anyway, let's not delay any longer. Yes, people, I know my audio was not good because this microphone was behind the screen. I've now moved it, so we should be able to hear me right. Please give me a mic check. I might check if it's still a bit problematic, but I think it's all right now. Anyway, before we start, like, subscribe, comment in the comment section. Make sure you share this around PRTvSpurs, Paxton Road TV. We are, moving towards the end of the season, and next season will be some changes. Anyway, let's get into this. Right, Darius, so I wanted to talk to you about what we've had some conversations about recently. I think you've enlightened me. I've told you that many a times, and now my eyes are fully open. Now, people, before we get into it, I'm not a Spurs hater. I'm not one of these, off the cuff, oh, I do this, I hate this, I don't like that, and I'm just not a reactionary person. But I do know football. I do like football, and I've been into it for a very long time now. So there's things that we've seen in our history that's repeated. We've not had the most success since 2008. And we're now in a situation where we're enjoying the football. We're enjoying the manager. We're enjoying everything about it. But there are some things that could be looked at. So that's what I'm saying. Uncomfortable conversations. And I'm going to start with some of the short terms in terms of uncomfortable things. We need to talk about the players. We need to talk about the starting 11. And a good place to start is, I'll start with you then, Darius, before I go into this sort of discussion. Are there players in this starting 11 in and around that should not be starting? Are there players in and around the starting 11 that should be starting? What's your thoughts on the team overall, given the fact that we're fourth in the table, 7 games to go?
Again, I think you prefaced it many times, and I think, again, I'll probably have to preface it again. I'm not here to hate on Tottenham. I'm really not. I actually enjoy watching my team again. I actually enjoy what I've seen from this season. However, saying all that, I think there's a lot of fans who are a little bit too happy with what we're seeing at the moment. And whether that's because they haven't seen great football in years, or they haven't been able to enjoy watching their club in years, I understand that. But still, that 11 ain't the best. I'll be real with you. We claim that we need to improve the squad and this and that, but I think we need to start with the 11. And if we go through it very quickly, the back five, I think, is sorted. So we don't really need to speak about the back five. We've managed to build from the back forward, which I think is probably the best.
Let me just ask a quick question. Are you comfortable with the starting five?
If the starting five is Vicario Porro, Van de Ven, Romero, and Udogie, then yeah, for me, that's a back five you put your hat on for the next few years. Now, I know we've conceded a lot of goals, but in that same breath, we have conceded a lot of goals. We've also managed to stop quite a lot of attempts on our goal. I think we're something like 5th or 6th, maybe 4th or 5th for shots faced in 2024, behind the likes of like Arsenal and Man Cities and stuff like that. So we actually managed to not really face a lot of shots, which is quite impressive. It's just conceding those chances, we just can't seem to do it. So despite me saying that defense, I think, is sorted. The midfield is a different question, in my opinion. I think when we look at that midfield, I think we could change two. I think we could upgrade 2 positions. I think one is guaranteed, but I think we could upgrade 2 if we really, really wanted to. But if we're going to be nice, one is guaranteed swap, I think. I think that defensive midfielder, that position there, whoever you want to put in it, Bissouma, Bentancur, Højbjerg, whoever you want to put in there, I think we need to upgrade in that position.
Well, before we talk about upgrading, because we're going to talk about transfers probably more so the medium term, because that's the summer transfer window for me. But in this, what I mean by the short term is, and I'll give my example. So I believe that Yves Bissouma, I loaded him up when he was at Brighton. I loaded him up when we actually were attracted to him. I was absolutely over the moon when he got signed for Spurs. And you know that was the case. He bigged himself up saying he's one of the best midfielders in the world. Now I was thinking to myself, yeah, this is great. I hadn't watched him all the time at Brighton, but then I've obviously seen him close up at Spurs. My uncomfortable part of this conversation is I don't think he's as good as he thinks he is, and I don't think he's as good as I thought he was. That's just my feeling at this moment in time based on what I've seen for the whole season. Now, to caveat that, at the beginning of the season, he was great, fantastic. First 10 games, as all the rest of it that's been said. We were good as a team. As I think you said, that was the early days. No one really knew about how we were playing. You know, they didn't, it's the Spurs. Oh, inverted fullback. Shit, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, attack, high defense, high line defense, blah, blah, blah. No one knew what was going on. But then, I think, since then, and since that includes a drop-off in terms of some players' attitudes, I think.
And injuries as well.
And injuries. We'll take that into consideration. But again, other teams have had injuries. Other teams have coped with injuries, and that's not an excuse I will use all the time. Yes, it does affect you if you've got significant injuries and suspensions condensed, and we had that November time. But since then, we haven't. You know, since probably about the last, since they've all come back from the AFCON, Asian Cup, blah, blah, blah. Going back to my point, Bissouma, I don't think has been at the heights that I think he should have been. Højbjerg, we all looked at him. I looked at him at the start of the season. He didn't look like he wanted to be there. He looked like he'd had enough. You know what I mean? He's just like coming on and just like whatever. And didn't look like a player that was wanting to be involved with Spurs. Since then, I've seen a transformation more so in the last couple of months. Maybe he's accepted his position. Again, going back to the point. Sorry, it's been elaborated a bit long. But I don't think Bissouma can play that lone 6. Now, I think, as you said, I think we need a lone 6. I think there's a case over this next 7 games or so for him not to start. And we've got Bentancur and Højbjerg. What's your thoughts on that?
Who's our next game? Is it Newcastle?
Newcastle away.
I would be inclined. I don't know. I really don't know at this point. I'd be inclined to start him only because Newcastle play in a way that if he can beat a press, we can be on Newcastle. We can counter Newcastle, but we can find space against Newcastle quite easily. Based on form, I wouldn't start him. And just on what you said, I think you're right. Bissouma is not as good as he thinks he is, but I don't think Bissouma is a bad player at all. I think Bissouma is a good player. I just think that Bissouma needs to find a team where that system fit. It's all about personnel, isn't it? And player quality and skill set. I don't think Basuma can play that role very well. He's good at beating the press. He's good at that. But I think in the formation that we play, in the system we play, our DM needs to sweep and help our defense clean up. They need to be a general who can stop counterattacks, who can ease a little bit of pressure off that defense, and at least, have a little bit more of a defensive mindset. Because for me, Basuma, he's not been good since the start of the season. And for me, again, he's not been good unless Sarr's been partnered with him. So, again, not saying he's a bad player, but I really don't think that he's a player that fits the system that we need. And there's other people who I think are on the market potentially who would be able to do that role. I think we need a more defensive-minded defensive midfielder, as crazy as that sounds. But we need a more defensive-minded defensive midfielder, and allow those two midfielders to 5 players going forward. You should have enough, especially with the fullbacks joining an attack as well. Should have enough. And if you're suffocating a team and playing way beyond the halfway line, then those certain centre backs and DMs are going to be in attacking positions anyway. So for me, I think we need to think more defensively when we're looking at that defensive midfielder position.
Yeah. Let's have a few comments here. As I said, people, I'm not here to disagree and argue with everybody. We may have disagreements, we may have different points of view, but it's not a fight. I just wanted to point that out. So there's a few comments in there. Let's go through some of them on the stud ones that I've got here. Jude's nuts saying, loaded question for remainder of the season. Yes, midfield is not up to par and front line needs changes depending on opponents we're playing. That's correct. So what I'm saying about Basuma, he may look differently when you're playing different opponents. I understand all that, but I'm talking about in general since the first 10 games to the next 21 games. And yeah, I know he's not been involved in all of them, but we're not just talking about Basuma. We'll get into other players. David Cox, sorry, you're totally wrong about Basuma. No other player in professional football has caught long COVID and malaria and a serious ankle injury. You would have been blind not to recognize this. So don't play.
So yeah, what do you do then? Do you just
don't play?
You say, well, you can have a bad performance and you're allowed to. No, like unfortunately, you can be he can provide something off the bench. Don't start him then. He's not a starter. We need to upgrade then. That's what you're sending me from that message.
So David, I'll ask the question. Is he that good that he can play with long COVID, suffered from malaria, ankle injury, gone to the AFCON, and is he that good that we can say, yeah, you can have all that and you're still going to play? Because I've seen other players not get that sort of leeway. I don't believe he's as good as that anymore. I still think he's a very good player, and in the right system, in the right way of playing, maybe he needs a little bit more around him. If you're going to play him in the 6, if you're going to play him in a lone 6, it's going to be across the back of the line and you got 2 in front. I don't think Basuma's that guy. Don't care if he's long COVID or no long COVID. I've seen enough of him to know that he's not that guy. However, he's looked good in certain instances where he's had somebody alongside him. Now that'd be Sarr. Sometimes that's Bentancur, possibly Skip, possibly even Højbjerg. But I haven't seen too much of the Højbjerg stroke Basuma role to kind of know. But what I have seen is the likes of Bentancur come on and Højbjerg in the last few games and look pretty decent as impact players. Now, we've talked about this before. Is this a case of we need to maybe rotate some of these players such that we get that impact effect? You didn't start that last week. You've had a great impact. Then you start the next week. Let's say if the bench players then have an impact. That's where I believe Basuma's at. So I have to disagree with you. If he's not fit and he has had these things, he shouldn't be starting.
It's tough because I hear what you're saying, David. I really do hear what you're saying. But my thing is, I'm not using that to excuse his lackluster performances. And again, there's another comment there from I can't remember who it was. Juice says it. He says that he's been carrying a knock since October. That's concerning if you think he's been carrying a knock since October. And if he is, then why is he not making that clear to the management? Why is he playing with a knock? We've got players likewise in this position. I just think his form dipped and coincides with the Sarr injury and Sarr going to AFCON, whatever you want to say. Because for me, Sarr and Basuma work in tandem. Basuma cannot work alone. Sarr could work alone without Basuma, but Sarr and Basuma work in a tandem. So that's all I have to say to that. You need another player to make Basuma better, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and I think Sean's not on here. Basuma seems to have a good thing going with Sarr, and I agree. And when we kind of, not me personally, but when Andrew worked out what he thought was his best, he said initially he couldn't wait to see Basuma Bentancur and Maddison playing a three. And I was like, up for that. Yeah, because them three, if you put them names down, you're thinking to yourself, creativity in terms of Maddison. You've also got that hybrid creativity, I guess, with Bentancur, because he does get up front, but he can also play in that six. We've seen him do that for Uruguay. And Bissouma being the player that he was, or player that I thought had the talent to be able to do both. It transcended that, obviously, with the injury that we had with Bentancur, that we couldn't see that formation. And it seemed that Sarr, of all the players that were in the background for midfielders, that being Højbjerg, that being Skip, was the person to be able to come in and play alongside. And he did look like it was a good partnership. But again, it was dependent on how we played. In recent times, what I've seen Sarr doing is he's been alongside Maddison in terms of being almost like a number 8 stroke number 10, but also being able to get back. So he's effectively box to box. But again, I've heard, rightly or wrongly, that he's carrying a little bit of an injury. He's had some injury issues. Sarr.
Oh, it looks like, to me, it looks like Sarr's playing with an injury. I'm not trying to excuse Sarr's performances either, because he's dipped off a little bit. But 100%. It does look like he's playing a little bit restricted. And we know that isn't it a back problem that was reported?
Yep, I've heard that. The back problem has been reported, recorded. People have said that, and it's kind of come out, but not come out, if you know what I mean. But yeah, when he's asked about it, Ange has this thing about saying he's honest in most of the conversation, but I guess you can't be too honest. What I mean by that is, if someone's going to ask him, has he had a back problem all season? He's not going to say, yeah, I've been playing with a back problem all season. I don't think any manager's going to come out and say that. They might try and work it to their advantage, but in all the conversations that I've seen in the Spurs chats, blah, 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 it seems like Sarr is carrying a bit of an injury. So if that's the case, Sarr and Bissouma playing together, what's going on?
I don't know. I think, again, I'm not trying to I'm not a manager. I'm not Ange. Ange knows his system perfectly. He probably knows exactly what he needs. But when I look at it, we're getting caught out in transition a lot. And I feel like we need somebody. I give Declan Rice is the perfect person for it, but obviously you're never going to get Declan Rice. Palhinha does a very similar thing, and he's also very good. And funny enough, his name is Joao as well as was it Angelo saying that we need loads of Joao? Joao Palhinha would be a great option because he defensively can cover a lot of ground. He's a good age, about 26, 27, but I just think it's difficult. When Bissouma does the right things and he beats a press and he gets out of small spaces, he looks great. And he is a great midfielder with good feet. But for this system, I think we need a little bit more defensive responsibility from our midfielders. And Sarr does that. Sarr works hard. Maddison, I also see Maddison work hard as well. I'm not saying Bissouma doesn't work hard, but sometimes I'm seeing Bissouma jog back a little bit too much and be caught out of position. It's almost like he wants to attack. He prioritizes attacking over defending. And I don't think that's how our defensive midfielder should be thinking.
Right. So before we move off Bissouma, because there's other players I want to talk about, a couple other players I want to talk about in this short term uncomfortable conversations. And how long have we been on here? 20 minutes nearly. What was I just on? My thought process is terrible. Sometimes I think about what I'm going to say and then it's just gone within seconds. Literally seconds, but I've remembered it now. Right, going to the Forest goal. The Forest goal at the weekend. Everybody's making a big point about Udogie not tracking Elanga as a runner, which is fair. That's fair. But what I heard from Troy Deeney on what was it, Match of the Day, and they've talked about how Sean Dyche, he's particularly talking about Sean Dyche, he looks at the three aspects that lead up to what that goal is. So it's not just the fault of the player that you think it is. I.e., for Wan-Bissaka, when he made that penalty decision to make a slide, there was all the build-up of players not being in position, players not putting pressure on, which caused him to be in that 1v1 situation and made the penalties. So it's not just him. There was a backlog of three things. Now, I looked at the Forest goal. Yes, we got played round, and the doggy kind of, let Elanga run off the back of him. But I watched what Bissouma did. Now, if you think about it, what happened was they was in the wrong position. There should have been some communication for either Udogie to stay with your runner because there was another player that made a run off the back that had the 1-2, or you kind of talk with Timo Werner because Timo Werner was involved in this as well. Didn't track back, didn't help out with defensive manner. I looked at Bissouma. He was clearly wrong side of his player, got gold side of his player, and then didn't even make the effort to get into the box. Sarr was a little bit further away. again, didn't look like he was busting a gut, but was jogging to get back, which meant that Van de Ven had to come across to try and deal with the player on that side, which meant that Romero has to come across to fill the space that was been left by Van de Ven, which meant that eventually Porro had to come. So we're pulled all over the place. And this is going back to my point. Defensively, if one or two players do not do their job in an Ange system, it falls apart. It kind of, and we think, oh, this is just the way it is. No, if he had tracked back, or if Timo Werner had tracked back, or if all of them had tracked back, that goal was less likely to occur. Not to say it won't occur. So when I start analysing those aspects of the game, that's when I'm saying, right, what is it about this player that he doesn't want to do that? Because it's not the first time. It's not the first time. It's not the second time. And a bit nonchalant, giving the ball away, unforced errors, as I like to call them. We shouldn't be seeing so many unforced errors. Forced errors, I get. Pressure, blah, blah, blah. Unforced errors, trying to kick it with the outside of your boot to somebody, across the pitch is a recipe for disaster. So looking at the whole aspect of just that one thing, and again, if you look back, you might see a theme here. We've got players that Ange needs to be more up to speed of his system. That sounds like a funny thing to say 31 games in, but the same mistakes are happening. We're still getting the same amount of goals struck, top shots off the target. Do you think this system suits players like Bissouma?
No, I said I think certain aspects do, but again, his profile of player, he doesn't seem like I know he, back in his Brighton days, he was averaging something like 8 tackles and interceptions, and it was crazy, and that's what we wanted to see from him. We wanted that from him, but it seems like defensively he's not as good as I thought he was. And I think in his head, and I know a lot of people like this, just play football myself, in his head, he don't want to defend. His first priority is to attack. He wants to do all the fancy skills. He wants to do all of that first. So again, I think he's not actually a DM. I think he's probably better in a role that Sarr plays, maybe. But then he doesn't really want to cover ground. So I'm like, where is he going to play best for Tottenham? I don't know. I think he needs a workhorse next to him, and that's the problem. I think, like I said, you need two players to make Bissouma. You need another player to make Bissouma look good or look really good. So, yeah, I don't know where the best position for him is. I don't really think this system is the one for him, but what are we going to go out and spend 100 mil on a DM or 60, 70 mil on a DM? I don't think so. So are we going to get any better? I don't think so. So it's like, listen, would I sacrifice?
You're going too far. You're going too far, Darius Speaker. We're going to touch on that in a minute. I want us to kind of move into them those spheres as we're talking about. But I agree with what you're saying. What I wanted to also touch on before we move on is 23 minutes in. Just a couple of these comments. Usually players can hide a bit in a matches, but players cannot hide an Ange style of football because there is more one-on-one defending. That's a very, very good point. We're relying on our centre-backs to have to cover spaces in the wide areas and also centrally because of the way that we play. So, yeah, there is a lot more one-on-one. There's also, if you think about it, a lot more transition game because of this high line that we play. We're always inviting the long ball over the top. So it's always a case of when we lose the ball, and particularly when we lose the ball cheaply, if I was a manager, coach, I'm saying just attack them wide spaces, wide areas, and that's where the space is. That's what you want to do. And they seem to be cottoned onto that. A lot of managers have. Dejan Kulusevski, talk to me.
I think time's up. No. Oh, am I being... Okay. Time's up for Dejan on the wing. Let me say that. Time's up for Dejan on the wing. Nothing on Dejan Kulusevski. I think Dejan Kulusevski is an absolute baller. I'll never not think that he's an absolute baller. People forget he's only 20. Is he 21 years old? I believe he's 21, 22 years old. 22, I think. He's a joke. He is a joke, and he's just not fast enough. He's just not fast enough. It's very clear that the style of wingers we need in the Ange system, and they're currently playing, but the wingers we have aren't good enough either. So you need to be quick. You need to be able to put a ball in the box. You need to be able to beat your man. Kulusevski's not great at any of them, really. And that's where he lacks. So for me, it's uncomfortable for Kulusevski because he's going to have to now think, what am I going to do? What role am I going to provide? I'm looking at a very injury-prone James Maddison and thinking, you know what? Every time that man's not fit, there's a role for me to play in that 10. You work hard, you cover ground, so you don't have to worry about that. You know, he's always up there for one of the players who's covered the most ground in the Premier League. If I'm him, I'm looking at that role in midfield, and I'm saying, you know what? It may be a secondary role, but Maddison's not on the pitch a lot of the times in the season. He gets injured a lot. So you'll get your minutes. And we're going to be in 4 competitions next season. So you'll get your minutes. I really think, unless that Lucas Bergvall or, you know, Mikey, if you're going to bring in a Mikey Moore or Lucas Bergvall, then cool. If you put in that much faith in them in that position, or Alfie Devine or someone like that. But if you're not, Kulusevski can play that role. He did it this season for a bit and he did all right. But that winger, he's finished in the winger position now. And I don't know if you agree with me. I don't know if many people will agree with me that he's finished as a winger. Absolutely finished.
Well, before I give my opinion on that, David Clark saying we need better wingers. So he's obviously kind of agreeing. And sorry, I don't care what you say. Our 2 inverted fullbacks are just not creative enough for Spurs to win trophies. Can their creativity be improved? That's one thing Andrew said he wants to definitely improve in that front third. Are they good enough? I think they're young enough to learn. I think both those players can show that ability. Doggy does need to learn a lot. He's still young. And I agree with what you're saying. At this point in time, I don't think they are creative enough to win trophies. But I don't think there's a lot of pressure on them to have to perform, if that makes sense. Because when Udogie goes out the side, we're bringing in, at the moment, potentially Ben Davies. Potentially.
Emerson
sometimes kind of fills in there. And on the other side, if Porro goes out, exactly the same. It looks like Emerson Rowe. And Emerson Rowe, as I said before, with this star, with this manager, with this current way of playing, we can't have a big drop-off. We can't go from 95% to 60% in terms of the player's effectiveness. I don't think it's going to work long-term. And that's when we'll get on to about the transfer window. But I agree with what you're saying. I don't think our wingers are good enough. I don't. Unless you count Son as a winger, which he should be, but he's not.
No.
Ooh.
Can't play winger.
Son can't play winger. Uncomfortable conversations, part 1.
Let's be real. Let's be real. Son cannot play winger. Son is my favorite Spurs player of all time. I think I can definitely say that. But he ain't a winger no more. He ain't got the pace. And his first touch, whoa. Don't know what's happened with Son, but he's a great striker. I think he's actually a great striker. I think his finishing, if he took more shots in and around the edge of the box, I think he'd have more goals this season. And he's almost on 20 goals. So I think Son is now a striker. I think he's now a striker. And for me, that means that, I'm getting too much into transfer talk again. But for me, Son, left winger, pace is one of the most important attributes to have as an Ange winger. You need to be able to beat your man. Like Angelo said, there's a lot of one-on-one defending, but there's also a lot of sort of wingers needed to beat their man to get a ball in the box. And a burst of pace is all you need, really. I saw Werner do it many, many times for Forest. Got past his man, put it in the box, threatening area. That's really what you need from your wingers. They're not there to really... It doesn't seem like, and I don't know if that's because our wingers can't really score at all, but our wingers don't look like they can score many goals. So I don't know where the goals are coming from, to be fair, if it's just the strikers.
Do you know what I want to just add about the wingers? I think they're too autonomous. What I mean by that is they just seem to do almost what the manager tells them to do. And that's not a bad thing. Let me try and explain that a bit more. They are given instructions and we can clearly see Timo Werner was told, get to the byline, get the ball across with your left foot. That's what he was told for the Forest game. And he did that majority of the game. Fine. But what happens if Forest were a better team and decided, okay, which they started to do a bit more in the second half, we're going to double up on you. We're going to stop you from getting onto that left foot. Now, I know he's not left-footed, and I know he's supposedly right-footed, but every time I've seen him cut in with his right foot, it's either going in row double Z or it's just not happening. He's just not, he seems stuck. And so therefore, for me, there is no real creativity in these players. They can't work off the cuff. I've seen a few, I'm not talking about it but in general, they seem to be coached to the point where this is what I expect you to do, and they don't do anything else. And then what happens is when they can't do that, I don't think our wingers currently have got the know-how to kind of think, you know what, I'm going to try to do something different. Why don't I maybe drift into the central role a little bit more? Why don't I maybe go into that number 10 area? Why can't I? Oi, Johnson, let's swap wings for 10 minutes to see what happens. Oi, son, let me go central. Let you go on the left-hand side. Does the manager allow all that sort of like progression to be done? Or is it a case of, right, well, this is where you're playing? It seems that way.
It seems like they're coached the same thing every single day in training. And again, autonomy isn't necessarily a negative thing. It's just a long process, isn't it? Like, you're not going to see the benefits of this autonomy until maybe 3 years into this project. Because when it's like that and it's just second nature, then we're going to be like, wow, we're blowing teams away. And when the personnel is perfect, we're going to be like, wow, we're blowing teams away. But it's not a guarantee in football, you know. This system has to, like, Ange is putting a lot on this system because, like you said, players aren't really taking any initiative at the moment. So he's really banking on this system to be foolproof. And don't get me wrong, he scored more goals, generated more XG, created more chances without our best striker and probably best creator. However, and I said this to you all the time, let's not pretend like these teams are not multi-million / billion pound clubs with the ability to have, you know, hundreds of you know, data analysis members of staff. They have loads of people to analyze the game, to help the manager, you know, dissect tactics and pick a good system and pick a good team to beat these tactics. If we don't change anything, we aren't going to get anywhere. So we're going to have to change some things. If that's, you know, game by game or in general, I don't know what that is, but the defensive personnel isn't going to change. So if we continue to concede, 60 goals again next season, are we going to then say, oh, this defense ain't good enough? Because I ain't going to be saying that, because I know all these defensive players can play.
So this comment here from Jews Nuts, based on what Dyer said. Did you see Dyer's comments about Ange not doing tactics during training? Was it taken out of context? Was it a bit of, like, you know, saltiness from Dyer because he didn't really get an opportunity at Spurs?
I don't even know. Do you know what he said? Because I don't even know what he said.
I can't quote it verbatim, but he basically said that Ange doesn't necessarily. I don't know if he said it in that one sentence. Ange doesn't do tactics in training, but it alluded to the fact that tactics weren't part of the main focus of training, which I can't understand, because whatever you do in training has to be tactical. If you tell a player, I want you to get to the byline and cross it, that's a tactic. So tactical training is part. Whether or not he doesn't explain it as saying, we're going to sit down and this is a tactic for this and we're going to play like this, maybe that's different. But you still have to have a strategy which then relies on your tactics to come forward.
I think he just coaches the same tactic every training. That's what it looks like to me. He just looks like he does the exact same thing. Even with the corner tactics, like we were saying in the Forest game, it was short corner to the person in the box, back into the person who did the short corner, and then into it was the same short corner tactic every single time. Yeah. It looks like we do the same thing every single time.
If you watch what we do, we have patterns of play, very, very distinct patterns of play, from when we play out from the back to where we play into the midfield to where the fullbacks then come into the middle and gives you the options for having then 3 across that middle with another 2 in front with with the other wide players. And you can build up, you can see where the pattern goes. If the ball goes into a certain player, you know pretty much where it's going to go next, or supposedly going to go next. And this is where I've got a little bit of an issue, because patterns of play are great. It helps everybody know what their jobs are, what their roles are. But football is off the cuff. We know that. So I'm not saying that they don't do that. Of course they do. But it seems like when they're put into a situation where plan A doesn't seem to be working as well, because maybe the defense has decided to drop a bit deeper. Maybe they've decided we're going to press you a bit more quickly, so you're not going to have as much space. Maybe they've said to you, well, we're going to man mark James Maddison now, which then takes out a lot of our creativity. He has to then drop further back. If he's further back, picking the ball up from closer to our goal than it closest to their goal, he's not as effective. So there's different things which you can employ to make our tactics seem a little bit weaker. So that's what I'm saying. You need players who have a bit more intelligence. You need players that have a bit more quality to be able to decipher when they need to do something differently.
I truly think, like I said, this is just an example for me that's sort of just come up in my head. I think Jack Grealish is having a great season this season. I'll be honest with you. I think he's really actually having a pretty good season. And when I look at Jack Grealish's first season at Man City, which is probably his worst season by far at Man City, he almost, and he mentioned this at the end of the season, he's almost like he's thinking too much about what Pep wants him to do, and he's almost like not playing his way because he's thinking about what Pep has told him to do and what Pep wants him to do, the position he wants him to get him in. Now, that's important. But when Jack Grealish takes a little bit of initiative and he can do his own thing and he realizes I'm still Jack Grealish, I can still make that decision if I need to make that decision of beating my player. Jack Grealish looks unbeatable. I really do think that. And
agreed.
It just takes a little bit of intelligence from a football player. You have to have trust in your manager. You listen to what your manager says. I always listen to what you said when you were my manager at football. But at the end of the day, in football, sometimes you come across a situation, you come across a scenario where it ain't what training showed you. It ain't what we did in training. And you need to now use your brain as a footballer to then make that decision on a split second, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I'm not seeing that enough from Spurs. Maddison does it quite a lot, but that's the sort of player that Maddison is. Son does it not as much as I expect Son to do it, but I just need to see a little bit more initiative, a little bit more individuality sometimes. Because if we keep doing this, like you said, we almost were just ball to Werner in the box, and it gets repetitive. And I'm also not shooting as well. That was another thing. We did it a lot more in the Forest game, but sometimes we just need to take a shot. Just do what Van der Ven did, and you might score. You never know.
They were definitely, I don't care what anybody tells me, they were definitely told to shoot more in that Forest game. Basuma had 4 shots in the first half, all 4 from outside the box. I remember Højbjerg had that shot in the second half, which got tipped over. It was a deflection, and I think it went over.
Yeah.
Van der Ven's goal, although it wasn't outside the box, was definitely from a situation where just shoot. He actually said it, I'm going to bang it. If I get the ball, I'm going to bang it. He did that. Going back to your point about players and the patterns of play and not having the being very autonomous. Now, one thing is you want some autonomy. You want to have patterns play, as I said that. You want players to be drilled down in their technique. That's where the autonomy comes from. So when you do them passing drills, you hone it all down. You also want to hone down a tactic or tactics. So if you're going into a game, you want to play a specific way, you hone that down in training for maybe that week, whatever it is. You also can do that defensively. Defense is probably the easier of the two to attack. But what you can't do in training, what you can't replicate from training to say it's definitely going to happen in the game is creativity. Because you don't know our team. You can make an assumption about how a team is going to play. You can make an assumption about who's going to do what. But as you just said about Jack Grealish, if they decided to double up and triple up on him, he's got to think, oh, boss, we didn't do this in training this week. What do I do? You can't think like that. You can't, can you? You can't. You've got to do something. You've got to be
You've got to do it.
That guy.
Instinct. That separates the elite from the average players or the good players. Like, you sometimes you just have to say, two men are coming at me. Cool. I'll take it past them. Cool. I'll play it back. It's not always going to go exactly how you want it. If you play really well and you coach it, you'll get those. And I think Ange predicates his system on high quality chances. I think that's how I've sort of seen it. Not to say that he will be angry at you for taking a long shot, but Ange wants a percentage of probability of the chance to be as high as possible. And I think the best way to do that is a ball across the box and, 6-yard line finish. So he's trying to increase the probability of us scoring from that chance as much as possible. But sometimes, like Van der Ven showed, like we saw in all those Champions League games with every single one of those screamers, Bruno Fernandes, another great example. Kobbie Mainoo, another great example against Liverpool. Sometimes you just turn, shoot. Sometimes you just smack it, and it may go in. I don't think Bruno Fernandes ever was coached or ever did in training that shot that he did against Liverpool. I don't think he ever did that because you're not coached that. That's just how that happens in football. Stuff like that happens in football. So, yeah, we just need to be a bit more off the cuff, I think. And that's not hard. That's not hard to do. That's not hard to do.
His technique and how he struck the ball is something that you can coach. But the situation, you don't necessarily say, oh, this is going to happen in the game, so you're going to have to use this.
Yeah, you're not going to go to training and say, all right, Tuesday, guys, we're going to do...
Yeah, exactly.
Maguire, you pass the ball back to Bruno, and then, Onana, you're going to be running back as if we're going to pretend that we've made a mistake. You're not going to do that because mistakes happen, but you don't coach mistakes. Do you know what I mean?
No. But what you want to do is you want to practice and practice and practice so you have various different situations. So, football is what's the word, in an infinite possibility game. As with most sports, they're infinite possibilities. So what you've got to try and do is do as much as you can to be able to put yourselves in a situation where you can think about what that situation is to deal with it accordingly. And that's what I think our players are gradually getting. That's what Andrew's kind of said. He wants to see the improvement in that final third, which means creativity, which was said. You don't necessarily coach creativity, but you put players in the situations where they can be creative, if that makes sense. So what David is saying, and he wants you to give some more information. I'm just kind of saying, let Darius say this one. It's not true. 5 years at Leicester, he's never played less than 30 games in every season. The fact that Maddison gets kicked every 2 minutes.
All right, cool.
Is why.
So how many times have Leicester played Europe and 2 domestic competitions and, tried to actually... He wasn't there when they challenged for a title. He won an FA Cup with them, and then, he got relegated with them. Maddison, this season, I've always noticed a time of period. It's kind of like Kane. He may play 30 games a season, but there's 60 games in a season. There's 50 games in a season. Like, for a team like Tottenham, Maddison is not going to play. I don't care what anybody says. Maddison is not going to play 50 games a season. He's going to get injured. He was out for 3 months this season. I know it's great. 30 games, to me, in a team that is playing 4 competitions, 30 games ain't that much. Like, 30 games is, if you're getting less than 30, then you're extremely injury prone. But 30 to me is it's not even average, in my opinion. I think if you're playing 40 games a season, that's all competitions, 40 games that's a good amount. But 30 games, that's half the games missed if you're trying to play every single game in a full game season. So for me, I don't really know what David's trying to say. I think that we do need to double up on Maddison's position. And you've proven the point by saying he gets 6 shades of shit kicked out of him as well. If he's a player that's gonna get fouled all the time, then of course you're gonna have to maybe bring in a player who's similar to him to not get his shit kicked out of him all the time. Because for me, Maddison's similar to Kane in the sense that I always notice that they have one injury that puts them out for a significant period of time in a season. Kane's avoided that, to be fair, in the last 2 seasons. But yeah, man, just because Maddison's played 30 games a season, does that mean we don't now get somebody who can be an understudy to him? Does that mean that we just put all the eggs in a Maddison basket? I don't really see what that comment was aiming for. I see what you're saying, but I also don't see what you're saying. I think we should always be trying to get a second player in we should be trying to get a second player in every single position. That's how I see it. And it's not realistic, but that's you want to have a likewise in every single position.
Now, again, if I look at the position of Maddison, who's his biggest competition at the moment? Nobody. But Lo Celso should be, in my opinion. Lo Celso should be the one that's pushing him. Has Lo Celso got the credentials to do it? I think when you see him play for Argentina, you think, yeah, this player can play. And I've seen him make some cameo appearances. I've seen him make some starts when we didn't have Maddison playing. And he looked all right, but he wasn't, as with a lot of these players, consistent enough over a period of 5-10 games. Maybe he hasn't had the run to be able to do that and have that consistency. And again, he's another one. Seems to be injured quite a lot. If we've got both him now, we're not saying that Maddison is injury prone, but based on what you said, David, playing 30 games as Darius is now caveated, doesn't make sense for us next season if we're going to be playing upwards of 50 games, or we need to be playing upwards of 50 games. The Champions League format is now different. It's going to be more games. We are going to be in the Champions League next season, 4th or 5th, regardless. It looks like that's going to be the case.
So Maddison this season missed 74 days. Last season he missed 32. 2021-22, he only missed 5 days. 2021, he missed 122 days with a hip injury. 19-20, he missed a combined, with a head injury, illness, ankle injury, and knock, he missed a combined 40 days. So, to me, he is quite injury prone, if I'm looking at that.
Well,
so I'm
not going to argue that.
I'm getting another player. For me, I'm getting another player. I don't really see it's a no-brainer for me. I'm getting another player.
So now we're talking about Philip Hewitt. Thank you, Philip, for your comment. We just need 2 top draw transfers in the summer and a whole lot of outgoing. The system will set in if we continue and improve the squad, but we have a great base. So this is where we slightly move on to the medium. I know we hadn't touched on everything short term. I would have liked to look at the last few games of the season. How do you think? Do you think Ange's going to adjust his tactics to ensure that we compete against the likes of Arsenal, compete against the likes of City, compete against the likes of Liverpool. Those are the 3 games which we'll definitely be able to measure ourselves up at this stage. Not from the first 10 games, because we've seen that teams weren't probably afraid of how we're playing, but they certainly are now. So it'll be very interesting to see when we play Arsenal what that's like. That shouldn't be a game where it just relies on your football ability. That should rely on fight spirit, all the rest of it. Battle of the Bridge, I'm expecting a battle of the lane when them mans come there. I don't want to see them go away without some sort of kick somewhere. You know, I want to see some blood somewhere on some of these players. No, for real. I don't want to see one
if that
yellow
can't
card.
motivate you, nothing will.
No, man. If these men are like playing around us, I want someone to kick somebody down and take a yellow card and make sure it's a battle of the lane. That's the way. If we need to address it in that situation, I'm not saying we do, because as we rightly said, we need 2 top draw players in the summer transfer window. I think we need more than 2 top draw, which then leads on to the point. FFP, Spurs making losses this season, blah, blah, blah. Is this a way of us being told that we're not going to get a £100 million player? Andrew said he'd rather have 2 £50 million players than a £100 million player. Is he even going to get £100 million to spend without outgoings first? Are we going to get the money from these outgoings? How do you see, in terms of players that need to come in, players that need to go out? Again, uncomfortable conversations might need to be had about certain players. We might need to get rid of someone like Kulishevsky. I'm just saying, he doesn't fit the system. Is Johnson good enough to be starting all next season? Doesn't think he's consistent enough. If I see Timo Werner get bought, I know where we're going. Darius, your thoughts on the transfer? What do you want to see? What do you think is going to happen?
Okay, yeah, that's 2 different questions right there. What I want to see and what I think is going to happen. What I want to see, I'll be honest with you, what I would love to see is us spend a significant amount of money in a position where it would matter. So for me, and then some people may not agree with me, I'm not going to spending however much money on a striker. When there's a few strikers knocking about in our academy, you may be able to get a decent price for a striker at another time. For me, I'm looking at continuity. We've got Richarlison, we've got Son, Scarlett, Donnelly, Parrott. I know they're not at that level, but throw the dice at one of them. We need a left winger or we need a DM. So I'd want to see us spend a significant amount of money on a left winger or a DM. And then what I think will happen is we'll spend 30s and 40 millions, maybe 20s and 30 millions on about 6 players, 7 players. And they're all going to be young and they're all going to be prospects. And then we're going to have a few players coming into the team like Lucas Bergwijn, which I'm excited for. And, you know, I just think it's going to be pretty decent prospect. I think we're going to look similar to Chelsea, to be honest with you. There's a lot of good young players who'll probably be able to fit a system, but I don't think we're going to get anywhere. But I think we really do need to, like, for me, if we can get Paulinho for like 60 mil from Fulham, then we can really go and spend a little bit more money potentially on a winger. Because I really do think that Son's not cut out for left wing anymore. And our wingers aren't good enough anymore. So we really need to go out and, if we were serious, we need to go out and spend like serious money on 2 positions. But what will happen is we'll spend that same amount of money on 6 positions. So
Okay.
Don't know what to think about that. Don't know what people think about that, but
Well,
yeah.
we'll get into some of the comments. Okay, so how I try and do this is I look at what do we need in the summer, and without thinking about transfers, without thinking about who needs to go out, who, and all the rest of it. What do we need? In my opinion, and this is what I'm saying, it's got to be realistic. I think we need a backup number 2, personally, but that might not be a priority. I'm just going to go through this. I think we definitely need another centre back. That's 2 players. I think we need 2 fullbacks.
Another centre back.
Oh yeah, I don't think Dragonson he's not, because he's not the same drop off. Sorry, he's not the same level as Van der Ven on the left hand side. He doesn't have the same pace. He's got pace. He has aerial ability, but he's right footed playing on the left hand side. It won't work in the same way. Romero, different matter. I think he could replace Romero on that right hand side because Romero probably similar type of pace, probably similar type of aggression in terms of the player, but you have to have a tandem in your defense, in my opinion, to get the best out of them. A Vidic, Rio Ferdinand, John Terry Cavallo sort of situation where you got someone who's like the aggressor, but someone who's like the calm, cool, maybe got a bit more pace around it. That's what we have at the moment in our centre backs. When Dragusin and Romero play, I've seen now, it's not quite the same. And again, I'm not going to get onto him because he's only been here for a few months. He needs to learn. But Van der Ven, the importance of him has been clear for everybody to see. So I think we need a centre-back, 2 full-backs, a goalkeeper. I think we need an extra midfielder if nobody goes. At least one midfielder who plays in that number 6, but potentially could play an 8. I think we also need another number 10. And I think we need 3 players in the middle, 3 players across the front. That's 9 players, whatever it is.
You're not getting that. Well, you could get that, but it's going to be players who aren't going to really move needles and push us into a position that's going to win the league. That's the difference. So, like,
100% agree. We're not going to get 9 players of uppermost quality and loser players that need to go out to be able to do that. I agree with you 100%. So we need to be smart in what we're doing. Are there players out there that we can get that could fill and fulfill the potential and also fit the system for Ange? I do believe so. I do believe that there's those players out there that won't necessarily cost you. Look at what the likes of West Ham have done when they got Paqueta. I know they paid some money for him. Kudos and Diezman, Diaby at Aston. There's a load of players out there. We just have to be smarter.
You know,
how many players do you think we're going to get realistically then? And who's going to be going out?
5 or 6.
Who's going out then? Who's leaving the club? Who do you think's leaving?
Højbjerg, Sessegnon, Davis, Solomon, Richie if the Saudis bid like 70, 80 mil. Not many. I think too much sentiment. I don't think Postecoglou is going to make those. Because, you know, if you talk, like, if you're telling Darius McFarlane, who do you think you're going to come up? Who do you think is going to be sold? Or who do you want to be sold? I'm telling you now, put Kulu on the market, put Bentancur on the market, put Basuma on the market. But that's just me that's me looking at the system and saying, all right, cool. Value's very high for those players. We only spent 20 odd mil on each of them, 27, high 27s, maybe 30s for Kulu. I think you could make a bit of profit on them and buy players who are better positioned and better equipped to play in that system. I'll be honest with you. I'll be really honest with you. I've seen what Arsenal can do. Arsenal bought the perfect player for £100 million. And what you need to do is you need to realize what positions can you get a worldie or a potential, star or one of those centre backs. You can find a really, really good centre. This sounds crazy to say, but you can make a world-class centre back a lot easier than you can make a world-class DM and a lot easier than you can make a world-class striker. Even winger, I would say you could probably get a decent, like 30, 40 million winger and he could turn into a worldie. Striker and DM, you ain't like, there's no way unless you've got a worldie in your academy, there's no way you're going to get a DM or a striker for 20, 30 million and then be elite. Like, they're the 2 most important positions on the pitch, in my opinion. So I'm looking at it and saying, all right, cool, spend the money on if you're going to spend the money on a striker, like I said not to, if you're going to do that, get the best striker you can possibly get for that money. However, I would go for a DM. I'd spend 70, 80 million on a DM. I'll tell you now, that will change everything because it will give defensive structure and solidity for the centre-backs, allow the full-backs to go more forward without, worrying that we're going to get caught on transition. I'm telling you now, that DM, I see how important Rodri, you look at players like Declan Rice. These players are the most important players to the system on these teams. I'm so serious. A DM will change. An elite DM will change everything. But we ain't spending that money on a DM. So 5 players, all going to be under the age of 23. Couple maybe on a free. You might look at like Adebayo from Fulham on a free. Like, that's what's going to happen, Sam, unfortunately. And again, I don't want it to happen. I did want it to happen at the start. I don't want it to happen, but I think you're going to see the likes of Brian Gill leave, Solomon leave, Werner get his move. It's not going to be very promising for me, man. It's not going to be very promising. That's why we need another uncomfortable conversations part 2, strictly based on trophies. Strictly based on trophies, because
that was my next bit. The long term part 2 is going to be about the investment, the manager, long term, and what success looks like for us. But we can't deal with all that today. I'm just going back to your point about the play. We've scored 65 goals in the Premier League. The top scoring league is Arsenal with 75. So it's only 10 goal difference.
I mean, we are behind Newcastle and Villa, though, aren't we, in that list?
Newcastle on the same amount as us, 65. Aston Villa, 1 more goal with 66.
Okay, fair.
So we're in and around that. So we're not too far short if you consider Liverpool pretty much free scoring and City pretty much scoring, have 72 and 71 respectfully in terms of goals scored. So we're not far off goals scoring. What the massive
without Harry Kane as well.
Exactly. So I'm saying no, all those things are positive. We can still score goals even with the players that we have now based on the way that we play. Great, fantastic. However, 45 goals against. Arsenal have conceded 21 goals less than us. Liverpool have only conceded 30. City have only conceded 31. Aston Villa, who are our closest rivals, have conceded 49. So we're about the same as them. Goal difference of 20, their goal difference of 17. Manchester United being the outliers, they don't score. Scored 45. They've conceded.
How many have United conceded?
46. They've got -1.
And they faced about 5. And they faced about 2 million shots.
2 million shots. That's what I'm saying. They've had 2 million
need to
shots.
Respect Andre Onana a little bit more. I'm telling you. Man needs to respect Andre Onana a little bit more, because how have Man U only conceded 46 goals? I've seen them take 31 shots from Brentford. 31 from Brentford. Yeah. Oh my!
They've had more shots than I've had when I went out to Jamaica. That's how much shots that they've had. They've had more shots than I did when I went out to Jamaica.
That is mental. They've I say only 46 is a lot of goals, but they faced so many shots. They faced so many shots. Wow.
My point is, it looks like we can score. So if we look at where we are now, goals doesn't appear to be the problem. So I agree with what you're saying. If goals isn't the real issue, defensively, a DM would be great. That's what I'm saying. A DM, if we're looking as a priority, a DM, a centre back.
That's number 1 for me.
Yeah. 3 players. If someone said to me, you could only get 3, a DM, a centre back, and a number 9, whether that will be, as I said, for me, Alexander Isak fits that bill.
So Sam, you're leaving the wingers then? You're not getting any wingers in?
Listen, if I had to be pushed come to shove, then I'd have to leave them. If someone said to me, because financial fair play is going to dictate, I don't think we're going to get rid of all these players that we want to get rid of. We might send back Timo Werner. We might get rid of Solomon. We might offload Ryan Sessegnon. But who's buying these players? Obviously, with the Timo Werner, he can just go back. But who are we going to offload Solomon to? Who are we going to offload?
You know what? I do think the positive, a very big positive about Ange has made players look better than they are, which makes me think that with Ange as our manager, players are gonna, like Lo Celso, as much as he has a lot of stock in Argentina. I mean, the Argentinians love him, and rightly so. He is a starter for them, and Messi loves him, and he works hard. But like players like Lo Celso last season would have 0 value. He kind of has a bit of value now. Do you know what I mean? Like Højbjerg's, I know he probably might be going on. Is it contract run out this summer or next summer?
Who?
Højbjerg.
I don't know. That's a good question. Whether he runs out this year,
depending again.
If that's the case.
If he goes on a free, he goes on a free. But he's got his value back a little bit as well, Højbjerg. So I really do think even Dyer got a flipping move to Bayern Munich, and I know that's political for Kane or whatever, but I think that he gives players value, which is very important, because we could, even if it's not double the profit, whatever, if you can make your money back, at least you could then go out and get a player who fits the system a little bit better. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just think that certain positions you can't skimp on. DM you ain't skimping on, bro. You got to spend 70 million plus. Striker you ain't skimping on. You got to spend 70 million plus. And I also believe,
you might get a bargain. You might get a bargain. Remember, there's a lot of players now getting towards the end of their contracts. A lot of players getting to the year, so there's bargains to be had, and also with the financial fair play that's being pushed, likes of Chelsea, Newcastle, Man United might be forced into making sales, and you can get some cut price bargains. It's just like Black Friday. You know what I mean? You might get a Black Friday deal out there.
Might get a little 2 for 1. Might get a little buy one get one free. But
so I think we can do the market, but you have to pay the wages.
I think you're spot on though, Sam. I think you're spot on. I think DM, left-footed centre-back, striker. No, DM, striker, left-footed centre-back. That's my priority. If we get DM and a striker and they are like elite quality, which we're not going to go and spend that 150 mil. But if we do, I'd rather have those 2 elite players than 5 role players.
100%. And I'll give my reasons for that. 3 players that will do this thing for us. Obviously, we can see that the goals that we're scoring at the moment. We've lost Harry Kane and we still scored 65. Let's say we had a Harry Kane of the ability to play in the AND system. As I said, this is why I'm looking at players like Alexander Isak. I think Kane could play in the system now and would score 25, 30 goals for us, without a doubt. But if we can get 20, 25 goals from a number 9 and you get all them other goals, I know we've shared the goals around and you're not likely to get everybody on the same level. But if you can get a number 9 that scores you 25 goals in the Prem, and then you can chip in elsewhere with other players, Son might get 15. You might get a Johnson with a 5 or 8 goals. You know, you get a few from your defensive players. You could potentially.
Do you know what, Sam? Do you know what's so mad? I look at this Let me look at this Premier League goal scoring table because, I mean, no strikers on 20 goals yet this season. That's how. That's how. Are you talking about 25 all competition? You talk about 25 in the Prem.
25 in the Prem is the benchmark for 20 is the benchmark for a top player in the Prem.
For an elite striker, I would say.
Yeah. But if you can get what Kane was doing, 20, 25, 28, 30s, that's top.
You have to spend 100. Unfortunately, you have to spend 100 mil.
We create so many chances. So if you do the maths, if Kane was getting those numbers in a Conte team, I know he was doing a lot of work himself with other players like Son around him, but if you can get that amount of him, you put him in a system where you're getting double the amount of chances.
You know what, Sam? Strikers is just the striker market, just in the Prem alone. I mean, I'm looking at the top goal scorers. Number 1's a striker.
About Ollie Watkins. Go on, sorry.
No, I'm just saying number 1's a striker, number 2's a striker, and then Salah, Palmer, 3 and 4, not strikers. Solanke's striker. Then Bowen, not a striker. Isak, striker. Son, guess he's a makeshift striker. Foden, not a striker. Saka, not a striker. And then you've got the likes of Chris Wood on 12 and Darwin on 11 and Rashad. Like, there ain't many strikers out there that are going to score you 20 goals a season.
I agree what you're saying. We lost one of them.
Imagine.
But again, this is what I'm looking at. If you say Cole Palmer has got 16 goals now, I know he's got quite a few penalties, but he's at Chelsea. They're 10th.
Yeah, Cole Palmer's a joke, though.
You know, Dominic Solanke, 16 goals at Bournemouth. Come on. If you're getting 16 goals at Bournemouth, you would hope.
But would you take Dominic Solanke?
No, I wouldn't.
Exactly.
No, I wouldn't. But I'm just giving that as an example.
No, but I hear what you're saying, 100%.
Alexander Isak has got 15 goals in a team where he's only played 23 times. Alexander Isak has got 15 goals where he's played 23 times. His shot accuracy is 69%, the highest of anybody, apart from Phil Foden with 73, Chris Wood with 70. Shot accuracy. Conversion rate, goal conversion, Chris Wood is the best in the league at the moment.
Yeah, Chris Wood's a joke. His conversion rate's a joke.
So every shot he gets on target, he nearly scores half of them.
Chris Wood is a joke. He's a joke. He's a joke. And honestly, I saw that stat. I think they flashed that stat up against us when we played him. But Isak, for me, in the Premier League, I'm taking Isak over Tony and over Watkins. If you're looking outside of the Prem, oh yeah, he's young. And if you're looking outside of the Prem, Victor Gyökeres, oh my goodness me. I don't know if you know about Victor Gyökeres, but that celebration, he's on 50-something goal involvements. If Arsenal get him, Arsenal going to win the league for, oh God, I don't know how long. But he's, again, Sporting are asking for 100 mil. He was at Coventry just recently, signed for Sporting from Coventry, and he's just he's supernova. He's an unbelievable talent. So, and it's very similar to Isak in a way. So Isak, Gyökeres, I know Audio Artisan said Evan Ferguson. The fall off is a bit mad, you know. Don't know what's happened to Evan Ferguson recently.
He fell off. He's young though.
He's only 18, so he's not falling off. He'll turn into an elite striker. You might need to get him while stocks are low. You might be onto something at Audio Artisan. You might need to get him while stocks are low.
And again, if you look at João Paulinho at is it Fulham?
Fulham. Oh, Fulham. I would love him. I would love him.
that fills that DM position for me, because you don't have to necessarily play him as a low one. You could play him as a double pivot, but
And
he's
he's
got
20,
the quality.
what, 27? He's perfect age as well.
He's got the qualities there, which I think will be an improvement on what we've got, and still young enough that he can, be there for 3-4 years if that was the case. So that's two players: Alexander Isak, Paulinho. We could look at the other DMs, but I'm just trying to be quick.
But you realise that's 150 mil, or maybe 120, 130 mil gone.
It depends. It depends. You know what I mean? You could have these. I reckon you could get Isak out of there a little bit easier, because one.
How much do you think you're getting Isak for?
What, they paid 70 mil for him. Now we paid 60 mil for Richarlison. So I think if we paid 60 to 70 mil,
you think you're getting him?
I think you do. If all the rumours are to be believed about FFP. Centre back now.
That's the hard one, because
it's centre back is tough. I will admit that is a tough one. To match up what we've got with Van der Ven, it's going to be really tough. It's going to be a tough one. And I think this comment here from Angelo is right. We definitely need Van der Ven's siblings. We need his brother. We might even need his sister if he's got a sister, if she's that quick. We might need to play her too.
You know what? I think Hincapié, we've been linked with him a few times. Piero Hincapié, I think he's 22 years old. I think he's left-footed. He might be the one. But you know what it is? If we were playing FIFA. Honestly, this is the thing. We're wishful thinking right now, Sam. And this is my thing. I really wish that I can't see in a world us signing Isak when Richarlison's still at the club. Just don't see it.
But that's a signal of intent.
But I just don't see it.
A signal of intent. A signal of intent is not saying we're going to be safe and we're going to sign Timo Werner and pay him 165 grand a week. 165, yes, 165,000 pounds a week for Timo Werner is what he's actually costing us at the moment. And whether that's shared between us and everywhere he's come from, I don't know. I don't really care. People are saying get him in as a squad player, but why?
Who?
He's not better than Timo Werner. Get him in as a squad player.
He's better than Gil and Solomon, to be fair.
Yeah, he is. But that doesn't make us better next season, does it? Does it make us better next season having Timo Werner as a squad player? In my opinion, not, because he looks like he's starting more often than not. He's starting more often than not at this moment in time, which might be the way that they've gone this season. But who's starting on that left wing if he doesn't? If Kulusevski's playing the way he's playing at the moment, Johnson.
That's what I'm saying. This is why I think. Okay, Sam, let me ask you a question then. If we got an Isak, a Gyökeres, a Tony, and then had to, spend a little bit less on a winger, and we just said, you know what, Timo Werner, you've been here 6 months. We're going to give you a spot. And they signed Timo Werner, but they also get an elite striker in. Would that be okay for you? Or is that still, not good enough? Because I'm thinking, we're not going to sign an elite striker, but we'll sign Timo Werner. That's a disaster to me. But if we sign an elite striker, sell Gil, sell, what's my man's name? Israeli, Solomon, and then, get an elite striker in and then get Werner in for 15, I ain't going to complain too much about that, I'll be honest with you, because he's doing more than Gil and Solomon are doing combined. True.
But remember, if as we expect next season, we're going to be playing upwards of 50 games plus with the Champions League, if that's the case, and we are going to try and play in the domestic cups, we're going to be playing a lot of games. He's not consistent enough. An elite striker, unless they're Harry Kane or somebody of that sort of level who can create a lot for themselves, it's like Haaland at Manchester City. If you don't create for him, he's not going to score goals. He's an elite striker. He's an elite striker. But if you don't create enough for him, you're not going to get the goal output out of him. I'm hoping that we can create a lot of chances for players, but it's hit or miss. Sometimes it's like, oh my God, Johnson's done that. Why has he done that? But in other weeks, it's like, oh my God, he's great. Consistency is the key. If we don't have consistent wide players that can give us that creativity, and that also includes the fullbacks as well, then having an elite striker is going to give us more goals, but it's not going to be the upside that I want. So you would need to look at both of them in a sense. So the answer to answer that question, I can't. I really can't. I'd have to. If we got Alexander Isak, and then someone said to me, "Okay, we'll sign Timo Werner." If Timo Werner continues playing how he's been playing this season, for the remainder of the season, I'd be okay. I'll accept it.
But he
But
probably
I don't
would be a
think he
starter,
will.
though. That's a scary thing, Sam.
That's the thing. If he does, then he'll be a starter because
He
then we've
would be
got
a
Son.
starter. That's why I'm like
Richarlison.
scared, because some can't play left wing, in my opinion, anymore. That's there's a lot of, this is what I mean. You have to pick where you spend your money. And I know we're gonna have a part 2, so we can speak about this in part 2. So my last thing will be, you have to pick where you spend your money smartly. Can you get, is there an abundance of defensive midfielders, elite defensive midfielders in the market? No. Is there a bunch of elite strikers in the market? Potentially. Can you make an elite defensive midfielder, you know, in your academy? I don't think so. I don't know many DMs who are coming out of the academy at 18 and being elite. So for me, that's where you spend your money. A winger, you know, Alfie Devine could be a pretty fine winger. What's his name? Jamie Donnelly could turn out to be a pretty fine winger. Like, you could find a little wonder kid. You know, look at Martinelli, came from third division in Brazil. Like, you can find these wonder kids to mold them into the winger that you want. You just have to make sure they have the right profile. So for me, that's where I'm looking at what position is hardest to fulfill and find, and it's DM and striker.
Another way we could look at it is the game has changed slightly in terms of teams not necessarily having the elite number 9, but they seem to be able to get goals across the front three. Arsenal being a prime example of that. I'd even say Liverpool to some sort of degree are that team as well, because Nunes isn't the number 9 that they can rely on based on his numbers here. I know they've got Diego Jota, but Diego Jota,
good, to be fair.
Well, yeah, again, stats could be looked at. He's got 11 goals this season as Darwin Nunes, but he's had 165 shots.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, it's not 165 shots. I'm telling lies here. He's had 81 shots. It's the highest of any player.
Yeah.
Erling Haaland's only had 79 shots. And his minutes per goal for Erling Haaland is 111. For Darwin Nunes, it's a lot less than that. It's 165 minutes. His shot conversion rate is poor. So again,
he's basically scoring just less than every 2 games.
A lot less than that. For me, he's again. I'm giving that example because you might not necessarily need a 30 goal season number 9 if you can get the goals across your front three. Jared Bones scored enough. Mo Salah scored enough. Phil Foden, he scored loads of goals this season. We looked at players already. Who else? Dominic Solanke, Cole Palmer, Ollie Watkins. There's players there that are reasonably priced.
Oh, bloody English.
That you could potentially, I'm not saying we can get Ollie Watkins out of Villa, or saying Jared Bowen out of West Ham, which both of them I don't want. But if you're looking at it from that perspective, you can get goals in the Prem. So if you said to me, we're not getting Alexander Isak, but we're going to upgrade in them winger areas, and we're going to get of those sort of caliber, what are we going to do about defense? Can we get defense sorted? Yeah, we're going to get a centre back. I'm cool with that. And the DM, right? Yeah, I'll go with that. I'll go with a quality DM. I'll go with a quality centre back, and I don't mind what you do. Get 2 front players in that can get you goals. I'm happy with that. If that means that it's what's his name, Timo Werner, I'm still not sure.
We just have to pray.
Sure. Anyway, like you said, we've got Keith, Son, Vicario, Van der Ven, Udogi, Sarr, Johnson, Madison. We're going to do a part 2 on this one, Sean. So we're going to talk about that in great detail. Yeah, D3K is right. You're right, Darius. Not Bantamcourt. Spence, Cess, Rodon, Tanganga, maybe on Dembele.
Jesus Christ. You know how I forgot about all these, man, you know? I genuinely forget that all these... Oh, you know what? If you sold each of them for 10 mil, which is pity, you'd still make 50 mil off them.
Ndombele is the one that gives me nightmares. Where is he? I don't even know where he is. Does he even know where he is?
In Soho, in the Louis Vuitton store, shopping right now.
I saw
his 200,000 a week contract.
Is it Villarreal? It's not Villarreal, is that? I can't remember
what
who he's at.
Napoli. He was at Napoli. Oh, he was at Galatasaray, sorry.
Galatasaray, that's the one. That's why he had the yellow shirt. I remember seeing him in that yellow shirt. He had a belly.
Oh, he had a belly.
He had a belly.
But why would he not have a belly? Why would he not have a belly?
Tight.
He's eating good, man. He's got that Turkish food. He's eating good.
Good on £200,000 a week. He's eating good.
He goes to the Louis store. He's getting himself a brand new Rolls Royce, and he'll get that money back in the next week, won't he?
But David saying leave Bentancur alone. I think I like Bentancur, so I will leave him alone. I'm going to listen to you, David. Rice, he's more like What's it?
I'll leave him alone.
115 million.
Tapioca. 115 million. Yeah,
I don't
that's
know
how much they
Tapioca.
paid for him, for Rice.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, that's how much you have to pay for an elite DM. And look what it's done for them. Arsenal, you know, they might go trophyless again, but they're definitely showing a lot more strength.
This is definitely tongue-in-cheek from Angelo here. Timo is dangerous like James Bond. Tire, shaken, and stirred. Grealish, Tomori, Kimmich, Cancelo. That's the title.
You can wake up, Philip. You can wake up now.
Yeah, you get them players in. It's not spending 100 mil, I'll tell you that much.
You can wake up now, man.
Anana, top goalkeeper.
I agree.
Kimmich for DM.
Never joining.
Anana is a clown. What does Michael Jackson and Anana have in common? Answer: they both wore gloves.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy. That's a 10 out of 10.
That's a
crazy statement.
Yo,
That's
David,
a crazy statement.
you're I like that one. I like that one. The wingers are doing their job. They are doing the job because we
Just
have
about.
Hojbjerg has one more season. He's not quick enough, but he plays the position. Oh, he's been playing the position better. If you think about Hojbjerg, he plays in that DM role, but he slips back into that centre back role, which more often than not,
he loves that.
Why we don't have the problem of Van de Ven coming across and then Romero coming across, because he fills that space. So that's why I think he's a better player at the moment than Basuma, in my opinion, if you're going to play a single pivot or single number 6. What's your thoughts about us in discussion with Santiago Guimaraes about a summer transfer, 30 goal contributions in 38 games?
Trying to think if he's is he the PSV striker? I think he is.
Okay.
I prefer Gyökeres.
As we talked about, half of Palmer's goals are probably penalties. Quite a lot of them are penalties.
That's a talent. That's not a bash, man.
No, it's not bad. To be able to be in that horrible team and get goals is superb.
And Cole Palmer's overall game, like you watch Cole Palmer and it's not just his penalties, you know, that's just a cherry on the cake. Cole Palmer is a flipping baller. Like, again, I say this and it's might not be the right time to say it just after what Foden did in the Champions League, but I really do think Cole Palmer's on that level, if not, you know, the same.
He needs another season of that for me. If he does it,
30 goal contributions in a shit Chelsea team in his first season.
I get it.
That's mental.
You have to do it again. Let me see you do it again.
We'll be there. We will be there next year.
We will be there.
We will be there.
Richarlison has 10 in the PL in minutes. I thought he said matches. I was going to say. He's got 10 goals in the PL in 1,374 minutes. That's a better return minutes played than all of Arsenal's scores.
No, Richarlison's had a good season, man. I can't really get onto Richarlison because he was slow and then he just sort of the surgery just done him. Surgery just gave him superpowers, bro. Who
started this Yao thing?
Angelo started
it. We need Yao Isak. We do need Yao Isak. Isak, no, he's a fine striker, but we need one who's dangerous in the air, not just a midget. He's not
6'3". He's 6'3".
He's 6'3". Come on, David. You're hating now. Don't be hating. I know we gave Maddison a little bit of pelters, but I don't hate on Maddison. Maddison's a fucking great player.
No, Maddison's great. I love Maddison.
Isak,
he is the system. He is the system.
Phenomenal. We haven't really seen Solomon. I don't think Solomon's seen Solomon. How can you judge Solomon with only 198 minutes?
Yeah, maybe I'm being unfair.
Fair.
But I'm not I don't have the patience to wait and see if he's going to come good. Do you know what I mean? I know he was a free transfer, but I don't have that patience. And I really don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy, but ACL is a hard injury to come back from. Look at Bentancur. And he's a winger. He needs to be sprinting. Bentancur can not hide necessarily, but Bentancur can, he don't have to do as much sprinting. Solomon, I don't think Solomon's going to really do much when he returns, sadly.
Inconsistent. I've seen enough even in the 198 minutes. Yeah, I agree with you. He's only just turned up at the club. But what he did previously when he was at, where was he? Fulham. I don't remember him doing much at Fulham.
He's all right.
But I don't remember anybody saying to me, "Oh, that Solomon guy."
No.
What? No. So he can't.
Got him for a free, so you can't complain. That's why nobody complained. If we had spent 15 million, then people would have been like, "What the hell are we doing?" But it's free transfer, innit? So.
And that's what Spurs have done. So we can't be doing that again, thinking that's what saying, oh, we're getting Timo Werner on a cut price. So they said we can have him for 10 mil. I don't care how much you spend on him. You could get a player for free and he could be a lot better. 10 mil is not that much in the grand scheme of things, but he's not going to take us here. We are going to remain here unless what we do elsewhere defies what I think we're going to do in the summer. Put it this way. If Son played the number 9 role in every Prem game next season, Spurs will not finish in the top 6. So what I'm saying is he is no number 9. The ball played into his feet. He loses the ball too weak. Yeah, his first touch is not the best.
Good point, David.
He's not flick on. So Ivan Toney would fill that role, but are we going to play like that?
Then where's Son going to play? Like you're going to put Son back on the left again?
Put back on the left, in my opinion, if that was the case. Solomon played very few games for them last season, even less for us this season. As we aim to have 50 games next season, can we risk an injury-prone player?
Great point.
Correct. We can't.
And that's again, David, and that's why I was just mentioning about the Maddison thing. I'm not trying to get Maddison out of here. I'm just saying, even if Maddison misses 10 games in a season, we've seen how important Maddison is, and we've seen how when Maddison left that team, it went a little bit pear-shaped. It went very pear-shaped, actually. So I just want to have a little bit of cover. That's all I'm saying, David. Now, just want a bit of cover for Maddison. This
one about Reguilon. Again, uncomfortable conversations. And again, I've kind of changed my mind about him based on the style of football that we play. I actually think
he would do all right.
He'd do all right in this system.
You better than Sessegnon, put it like that.
Oh, 100%. He reminds me of Porro. Porro's not the best defender in the world, but he's got a lot of attacking ability. He's got a strike. I put Reguilon in that same sort of boat. Not the most physical player in the world, but he's a very much attack-based. And I think in this system, if you're giving him a role in midfield, which effectively he does, I think he's got something. Now, whether
you'd have him as the understudy then.
I'd get rid of Sessegnon. See you later, Sessegnon.
Have him as Udogie understudy.
If you're not going to be able to prioritize that as a position.
You've got him already. Right? There's no way we're getting a backup left back in the summer. No way.
Oh, there you go. So I do think that's the sort of tweaks that we'd have to make. Can he play in the system? I think he could. Is he better than Sessegnon? I think so. Get Sessegnon now. You've reduced one player, but then the homegrown sort of thing, there's other aspects of it. Oh,
we've got loads of academy players that should be getting minutes now, man. I think there's about 3 or 4 academy players that should be getting minutes.
Leslie Crawford, make a point here. Fact check if you want, but I think he's probably right. Johnson has already the same goals, 5 and assists, 7 as Grealish managed at City last season.
You know what? No, let me. I don't know, because I'll forget if I didn't say it. I'll say this really quickly. Great. Johnson, I'm keeping. I think Johnson's 22. Be silly to give up on Johnson. He's proven that he can do things. Ange's system is very similar to Pep, where I think you could slot in any decent, quick winger, and they're going to get goal contributions on the table. I've said this argument with Sterling for many, many years, where if you put Johnson in Sterling's position in that Man City team back in the day, Johnson would get 20 goals a season. No doubt about it. And that's not to say that, they're not good players. I just think the system helps them boost their stats. So more power for it. I'm not taking that from Johnson. I'm not giving the credit to Ange necessarily. I'm just saying more power to it. If Johnson continues to do what he does, no one can complain. Because 5 goals, 7 assists in your debut season, it's pretty good. It is pretty good.
I'm liking Johnson more and more, but what I'm saying about the Johnson thing, I still think he's inconsistent, and I don't think you can have too many inconsistent players playing in your front line all the time. Because one week he's playing good, next week he's not. Then Kulu plays okay, and then he doesn't. And then Timo Werner does what Timo Werner does. Even Son has been up and down. I know he's got the goals this season, and Richarlison's been in and out as well. So we haven't got a consistency throughout our front line, but yet we still got 65 goals this season.
Pretty good.
That's one thing I would like to say. Sell the farm, get Kimmich before Gooners get him. Maybe the last comment. Right, there will be a part 2 to this. There could even be a part 3, depending on things go. I'm hoping we have more comfortable conversations come the summertime. Grealish had 3 goals and 3 assists in his first season at Manchester City. That's from Leslie. Thanks for the comments, peeps. You're really giving me some stats here. Anyway, Darius, final thoughts.
It's not all doom and gloom, as we might have made it out to be. It's not all doom and gloom, but you know what? I will say one thing. We have to get this summer right. I think this is a very important summer to see. It's like it's a litmus test, isn't it? It's like we want to see how serious Tottenham Hotspur are going to be.
Now, I think Tottenham Hotspur are going to be quite serious. I think we are all in on Ange. So I do think we're going to see, movement in the squad and transfers in the summer. But we really got to see what transfers he's going to be. Because if it's Werner and then 6 19, 20-year-old kids who are all right, we ain't going to get nowhere. We really ain't going to get nowhere. So, yeah, good start. But I think people are getting a little bit over, like I said, there's still a whole part 2. People are getting a little bit over gas, but we're going to get into reasons why. I think we just need to be patient, allow the team to do what they do in the summer. We can make a judgment come August how serious we think we're going to be, because our manager thinks we're going to be challenging for the league next season. So I'm only going based off what he believes. I'm going based off his timeline. And he thinks if he literally said, if we ain't challenging for the league, why am I here? So let's see that happen then. Put that into action. Put that plan into action.
To some degree, people would say that we're challenging this year.
Yeah, we're 7 points off. If you want to be cheeky and trolly, then yeah.
We're 11 points off the top, having played the same amount of games as Arsenal. Last season, we weren't as close to the top as we are now. We were 8th, obviously. So we're a lot better off this season than we were last. I think we've got the same amount of points as at this stage than we had at 38 games last season. So potentially 7 games left. 3 times 7 is 21 points. Obviously, we could potentially get 81. I don't think we're going to get 81. Well, somewhere between 70, I think, and 75. That would be great, but I can't see us getting 81. My final thoughts are we have got a lot of potential in this squad. The manager's got a lot of potential, and he's also proven his style of football to a degree can be successful to a degree. And I say that because we ain't played against the likes of a Real Madrid. We ain't played against the likes of a Bayern Munich, Galatasaray and them sort of mans there where you have to go away in the Champions League and get a result. How do you play then? Do you play the same way? I'm not sure we can play that same way. But that is part 2's conversation is when we're going to go to. So, yeah, I think we're on a precipice of having to have a good summer. It can go one way or the other in terms of, what our expectations are, because there's a lot more games next season. Swedish Messi, Bergville, number 8. Sean is saying Kula needs to play at left wing for now. Right wing is not working at this point in the season. I tend to agree. I think left wing probably gives you a little bit more, but then does it make him one-dimensional? Because he's not the best on his right foot. So
who's that?
Inside Kulishevsky. You'd have to expect him to go to the wide areas. Anyway, that's enough. We've done this. Hour and 27 minutes. Didn't think it was going to be this long, but it has. Make sure you are watching and keep on watching. Like, subscribe, and comment. Paxton Road TV, PRTvSpurs. Myself, Darius will be back with Sid at some point. I think we're going to be doing the preview show on Friday for the Newcastle game. That'll be Mr. Sid Spurs. Sean's away in Turks and Caicos, so I'm jealous. But thank you for joining us, even though it's early hours of the morning. Not early hours, but early morning for you. And thanks to all the viewers. Angelo, Leslie, Jews Nuts is in the house. Who else is in there? We had Peter Kigios. I think I've said that right. Audio Artisan, as always. David Clark, as always. Phil Hewitt. Our own, very own. Who else has been in the house with us today? We've had a few. Who's at the start? Danny's been there. Danny, my computer's fine, by the way. Brilliant.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to you, Danny.
Shout out to Danny. No problems, Leslie. And we're talking about Spurs to win 2-2. We did that. Who said that? Spurs to win 2-2. There's a new silence from Leslie as well. Right. That's it, peeps. Time to go. Yeah. We will see you very soon. Let me just try and get the music and then we can get out of here. Thanks, Darius. Thanks, everything. See you later.
It's just different.